Hello,
Hi, Sai, how
hello.
you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Wayne.
Good to see you too. Good to see you. First, I want to say really appreciate you joining us today on Zoom as the founder and CEO of Crowdcast. So thank you for doing that.
For sure, I won't mention it too much,
Okay,
but
awesome.
we can dig into that a little bit more and why that happened.
Got it. Got it. But also, how you really doing? You're doing a lot in this time with Crowdcast and webinars and onboarding and everything during the pandemic. How are you doing mentally? How are you doing physically? How's life right
Yeah. Uh, so that's a really good question. But yeah, before I get into that, I just want to say thank you guys for putting this on and just organizing a conference around inclusion, right? Especially in the tech space. Um, yeah, it's just more important than ever. Specifically, what's going on with us and me personally, I'm just it's a mixed feeling. It's like it's bittersweet. It's both exciting and also sad what's happening. Both in the world and with everyone's personal lives. So it's a mixed feeling. But at the same time, for Crowdcast, we've been uh, really taking this opportunity to really be that space for people to come together and to gather in this time of need, where we really do need um, you know, I like to say not social distancing, but physical distancing, right? So
now? Yeah. Agreed, agreed. And with that, for people who don't know about Crowdcast, what is it? And can you give us a little bit of history?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, at its core, we're simply a place for people to gather for all sorts of things, whether it's talks, workshops, online summits, Q&As, live shows. So you can think of it as like an online events platform. People use it to grow their audience, to reach more folks, or to deepen their relationships with their current community, right? And it's the direction that we're sort of going is more like a live video network, you could say, for online creators. And just a really quick story of how we got started. It was about 5 years ago. Um, I was basically surrounded by these amazing people in a retreat down in Costa Rica, and I was looking for ways to help them share their knowledge. They're just masters in meditation and yoga and a bunch of other things like permaculture, and they just didn't know how to use the internet to like get their word out, And I'm like, that's the world that I'm familiar with, and I'm a designer and developer by trade, and so I was thinking, what's a better way for folks to just bring people together other than the webinar platforms that they were sort of struggling with. So that sort of launched us in this direction of really exploring a way to do an online events platform, which eventually led to Crowdcast.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, and what has been your response to like so many people, like even for me, like I didn't know Crowdcast before COVID happened. And then now it's on CNN, it's in all the articles, it's like one of the solutions everybody's mentioning. So what has been like for you to go from like zero to like 100, like with the world know about Crowdcast?
Yeah, I mean, the word that just comes back to me is just unprecedented. The amount of activity that's happened. We went from around or 500,000 like folks visiting Crowdcast every month to now over 2.5 million just within 2 months. It's just really insane. It just felt like a big wall of people just like, suddenly showed up. Um, in many ways, we've been just kind of doing what we've been doing as previously to just do everything we can to make the platform really easy to use. But the biggest issues that we've come up with just all this attention and all these folks suddenly coming onto the platform is scale. Like, can we fix these or sort of make sure that there's no scalability issues, given that there's now 5x more people suddenly on a video infrastructure that I wasn't expecting that to happen in a matter of weeks. So a lot of what we've had to do is just focus on just stability, bug fixes and patches, and focus on just the essentials so that we can keep this, uh, you know, make sure that we're sort of what's the right word, like stewarding the platform well, so that um, folks can come on and be successful with their communities, right? So a lot of folks are now sort of depending on us to make sure that things are working.
Yeah, yeah. And when I first saw Crowdcast, it was one of the biggest. It was a COVID-19 response like panel
Yeah.
being hosted. I can't
Which
remember who
did
was hosting that.
yeah, it might have been Singularity University.
Yes, Singularity.
Okay.
Yes, Singularity. Like so, what has been some of the most important conversations you've seen on the platform since everything has happened, and that you was like, wow, this is needed to help educate the world, prepare for what's going on.
Yeah, I mean that Singularity one was the first very relevant and massive one. We ended up getting around 20,000 people to show up to just a conference that they organized within a week, you know. So
Mm.
it was insane, and they're bringing together some of the world's healthcare experts, obviously, to talk about what's going on. So very relevant. Got a lot of really good information out there. But since then, I mean, you know, because it's such a it's just it's a very flexible space. You see things like meditations, yoga classes, exercise events, live cooking, all the things that you'd want to be doing while you're stuck at home, or maybe in this phase of just like reflection to go deeper into. So I feel like yeah, we've just been seeing a wide variety of support that people are getting by through Crowdcast through the greater network. But beyond that, I mean, we've had events like People's Action hosting Rashida Tlaib. We've had MoveOn.org and Working Families and Get Up and all these sort of political organizations bring together their communities to talk about sort of what actions they can take, given the situation. Um, on the healthcare side, we've seen even just folks like Paul Stamets and Dennis McKenna talk about like mushrooms and psychedelics and sort of, what people can do around that. And on the other end, there's a lot of conversation around security, So um, we've seen the Own Your Data Foundation just host another massive like summit to talk about this time that we're in around being able to, yeah, just while we're in this COVID situation, being able to be diligent and aware of all this sort of security stuff that's been going on at the same time. Um, so yeah, that's a whole other world around like what's happening in the
Yeah,
political sphere.
yeah,
But just to give you a quick sense of like the different types of conversations happening.
yeah, yeah. So with you, like running Crowdcast, and then COVID-19 happens, and then the growth, and then all this exposure, what was your biggest adjustment as a human to like be able to like take care of your own self from a self-care perspective, but also manage a team, be a leader, adjust, maintain culture, keep things moving? What was some big adjustments on your end?
Yeah, I think whenever there's some sort of an urgent situation, I tend to just my reaction is just to stay really, really calm and just really think about what's the highest priority thing and just kind of take action and execute. And so for us, that was hiring was the first big thing. Go full steam into bringing on as many folks we can around the customer success and the development side to be able to take care of these two very important sides of the business quickly. Um, and then me, I've always been like a maker and creator, and I love building things myself personally, and I get a lot of joy out of that. But now that we're a larger team, I really had to step back and make sure that I'm moving from the maker mentality to now like empowering others to make. So, just a sort of a mental shift around how I spend my time, going from going to thinking about like what are the greater systems we can create to then not just to make our customers successful, but also to make our team support each other, to build a company that we can be proud of, right? That can really, like I said, like become a steward because I really think of ourselves as having a lot of responsibility. Ultimately, like we are the ones who create the space. We're the space holders in many ways, and often the environment, the space that you're in, can do a lot to dictate like how you're feeling and what sort of conversations come up and how much people are connecting with each other, right? So there's a lot of, I would say, power in that, and so we just gotta really make sure that we're putting in the systems and processes for really thinking about what's our role in the long run, in like the 5 to 10 year plus time frame.
Yeah, yeah, and connect to that. And when you talking about planning for the future, what do you see the whole like events conference space look like? Is I mentioned on an earlier session, a lot of people want to talk about going back to normal, or or people are mentioning, like, are going from shelter in place to like reopening. Um, and what do you think? How do you see the future of the event space, like in the conference space? And are
Yeah.
we going to go completely back, or is it going to go like this hybrid? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I don't know, right? We don't really know what's going to happen at the end of this particular COVID phase. What is at least seeming to be clear is that there is somewhat of a permanent shift now. The adoption curve of using virtual tools, online tools to gather has just accelerated a few years forward really quickly, and that they're definitely here to stay. And from what we can tell, moving forward, even once physical events are a thing again, right? People are going to be still doing hybrid events, meaning making sure that they've opened up that live stream to have folks who can access the event who can't normally afford the ticket or physically be there because of distance, right? So that part itself seems to be like a permanent shift. Um, but just keep in mind, that this is just one pandemic of potentially more in the future, and we're also in a climate change crisis, right? There's a lot of things that unfortunately it is affecting the planet, and so people are going to still keep this in mind of like how do we continue creating ways for folks to access the information, access the knowledge beyond that physical limitation. I like to think of it as like we're in the business of helping people share ideas and communicate, right? And that's always going to be a thing. Just like people have to eat, right? People have to share ideas and communicate. So that part will always be around. One
Yeah,
thing though, that we are seeing is that just around how events and online events work, and maybe you've seen this as well. We've gone from a phase of webinar world where we're just like you're on screen, you're teaching something, and people are just in the audience listening, right? Which is more of a unidirectional type of a format, to now a multi-directional sort of experience where the community itself, the folks in the audience are actually able to meet each other, right? And this is something that, thanks to technology, thanks to some of the features that's got that some of the things that we've been building as well, it's enabling. It's now moving from that webinar world to more like a networking world or like a community building world. And you could even argue down the line that that's going to be the new form of content marketing, is like how do we focus on creating real community, like genuinely focus on that, because that's going to lead to all the other things that all the other business metrics that we're all looking for around sales and marketing and so on.
yeah, agreed on that. Yeah, I've taken on a new role around community and myself, um, and and yeah, agreed 100% on that. Um, there's a question in the chat that's real interesting, from Tony Lee, around remote infrastructure and video conferences. I've been I'm listening and trying to read it. Like, should I ask this question? It's like it's real just about like families. I just read, but do you see it?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But for people with accessibility reasons, I read it also. Tony asks, I want to hear your views on remote infrastructure such as video conference, not only for business, but also for personal use for families to communicate. Whether this has now become a public right, like normal public transportation infrastructure, universal medical care. Should remote infrastructure be public rather than purely private? So governments should have some responsibility to ensure it is well developed, or should remain the private sector for companies to come up with the products for demand and charge accordingly. Public-private
that's a really interesting
infrastructure.
question.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, my quick thoughts, just, I've actually never heard anyone ask about this, but I think it's really fascinating, um, is that ultimately, just like I was saying earlier, people have to eat, people need healthcare, people need to communicate, right? And it's very easy to argue that we need the internet to be something that is defended by and protected by the public, right? To be able to have anyone have access to knowledge share. Then the next level, sort of what Tony's addressing, is then what about the ways that communication takes form, right? Whether it's a text message thread or a video call, like is the public sort of supposed to be the one that's responsible for that as well? That's up for debate. That then you're getting into questions of like who's better at building product and designing experiences and all these things, right? So I think that's really hard to say. Typically, government hasn't been that great at creating products, right? But I do 100% believe that there does need to be some sort of a protection allowing people to communicate freely and gather freely, right? And so here, just back at sort of what we're doing at Crowdcast, we're really thinking about like how can we have moving forward if we are like an online place where people can communicate, congregate, and organize and come together. It is like in a way a public space, like public plaza, right? So then, what can we do to make sure that the public, the community, is or has a say in how this space is designed, right? And what are the mechanics of it and things like that. So we're really thinking about these things, which is really complicated, maybe somewhat ethical and philosophical questions around, who determines who makes these choices, like who gets
Yeah,
to vote on it. But yeah, really great question there.
yeah, yeah. So I really want to appreciate you joining, and thank you, for, I want to thank you just for building Crowdcast. Who knew that where we are today and all and how it will be needed in today's time. So, just any last words, not last words, just any final thoughts and any thing you want to share about what's new for Crowdcast or for yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ultimately, yeah, as much as I would love this to be hosted on Crowdcast, what we don't yet have is really good, features for like captioning and supporting, like what we're doing right now with live translation. And these are things that's really, really important for us. And so, just know that we're actually in the process of building a whole new version, you could say, of Crowdcast. Now that we have more resources as a company, we can now dig into some of these things that really are gonna set us apart pretty significantly for allowing the world to communicate. And so yeah, so just want to share that in the future, we hope to have this conference there on Crowdcast, and I just want to thank you, Wade, for everything that you're doing to bring the community together. I think it's a really really difficult role to be able to um, yeah, be the holder of a community. It's like rocket science, honestly. And so thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for joining, and thanks for sharing that what you're working on and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
I'll
right.
catch you there.
All right. Yep.
Bye.
Yep, thanks.